I was born in Jamaica, in a little town called Chapelton in the parish of Clarendon. It's middle Jamaica. It's rural. My mother's family are peasant farmers. My father's family, peasant farmers. One of my grandfathers was a cabinet maker and a farmer, and the other was a farmer and in charge of the forest. I was born in 1952. I left Jamaica at the age of 11 and went to join my mother, who had gone to live in England. So from 1963, I've been living in England and always in London, mostly in London, and I went to school in London and university in London. I didn't discover music. I was born with music. From the time I heard my heart beating, I knew I had music. I grew up in an environment where we had a very strong folk culture. There was music in the church. There was music in the games that we played as children. And as a child, I would hear this music being played in the hills when I was living in the rural part of Jamaica with my grandmother. And then when I went to Kingston, you would hear music in the jukeboxes, in the bars, in the rum shops. You hear music, mostly American R&B and early Jamaican ska. And also, like once every 2 or 3 years, a sound system would come to our village to play. And they would have a big dance. And we might be living 3 miles or 3 kilometers, 4 or 5 kilometers from the dance. But because we're the landscape, the contours of the landscape, I could stay in my grandmother's yard and listen to the music coming from miles away. At Easter time, we would make our own instruments. You'd get a piece of old cloth, get a tin, and you put the cloth over the top of the tin, and you make a drum. Or we'd get a piece of bamboo and use a hot poker to make holes in the bamboo, and you make a fife, and we have fife and drum. And then also with the bamboo, you can cut a piece of bamboo like this, and you use a razor blade to make the strings, and you wedge it with 2 little bits of wood here and there, and then you have like a bamboo guitar. I went to England at the age of 11, and therefore it wasn't that difficult to make the adjustment, because I'm coming from one part of the British Empire to another part of the British Empire. You live in Jamaica, you go into the mother country. We used to call England the mother country, And it was a little bit traumatic to begin with at school, because we were confronted with racism and being racist abuse. You black bastard, why don't you go back to where you come from? You people live in trees, and you black monkey, and all this kind of racial abuse. But it didn't take long for me to adjust, because when you're young, it's easier to adapt to a new environment than when you're much older. Teachers wouldn't be overt in their racial abuse, but they would say things to you like, if a teacher caught you running along the corridor in the school and you were supposed to be walking, he would say, hey boy, where do you think you are, in the jungle? And things like that, The racism, the institutionalized racism within the educational system was far more serious, because we were the children of immigrants who were brought to England to do the work that the white working classes didn't want to do anymore after the Second World War. There was a shortage of cheap labor to clean the streets, to work in the factories, to work in the hospitals, to work on the transportation system, the buses, on the underground, in the post-World War II Reconstruction period. So we were the children of immigrants, and we were not supposed to have high aspirations. We were not supposed to want to become a doctor. We shouldn't have aspirations to become an engineer or something like that. You were educated for the factory. And there were the expectations of the teachers of the black children was very low. So they had 3 tiers: the top, the middle, and the bottom. And the black children were all in the bottom stream. I began in the bottom and worked my way up to the middle. And I got a good education, a decent education, not because of the educational system, but in spite of it. Because I was the son of a peasant and a working class person, and we were driven by ambition. You know, we were coming from a poor Caribbean country to the mother country, and we wanted to make something of our lives, you know. We didn't go to England to fuck about and to be stupid, you know. We come to get a good education and to take us out of the poverty that our parents came from. At the age of about 15 or 16, I became politically conscious because of what was happening around me, and because of, there's a movement, an international movement of black consciousness at the time called Black Power. It was around the time of the end of the civil rights movement and the beginning of the Black Power movement. And I was influenced by the ideas of Black Power, about black self-determination, which also included the fight against colonialism in Africa. Countries like the anti-apartheid struggle was going on. The struggle for liberation in Zimbabwe was going on. The struggle to free the colonial territories in Angola, Guinea-Bissau, and other territories. And we had a sense of solidarity with all these struggles taking place in the world, and saw ourselves as part of the black diaspora that was being oppressed. So I became politically engaged and became a member of the Black Panther movement. The Panthers, it was not just about political agitation, it was about political education. So I began to write verse. And then after a while, I tried to find my own poetic voice. Because, you know, when you start to write poetry, you're imitating the people who you've read, you know. So if I was reading Kamau Brathwaite, I would try to imitate, not consciously, you're not doing it consciously, but it happens. You're imitating whoever you've been reading. But after a while, I decided I needed to find my own poetic voice. So I decided to use my own language, the Jamaican vernacular. This had been done before by Jamaican poets like Louise Bennett and Claude McKay and others, and Dennis Scott and Mervyn Morris and other people, which I discovered later. And I began to work with a group of drummers, some guys I went to school with. And those drummers played Rastafari music. They had the bass drum, the funde drum, and the repeater drum. And I used to play a little African box drum. And I would do my poetry with the drums. And that's when we began to have a public exposure. We would play, for example, in the local youth club to our contemporaries, or play in the local library, you know. And people used to say to me, hey man, your poetry sounds so much like music, why don't you put it to music? So when I was a student at university, I used to work for Virgin Records to make pocket money, writing biographies of reggae artists, doing the sleeve notes for LPs in those days, and doing adverts, writing copy for adverts and doing the voiceover for the adverts. So I suggested to one of the guys at Virgin that I do a LP. And one evening they took me out to dinner with Richard Branson, and they gave me £300 and said, okay, go and make a demo. And I've been making records ever since. This was 1977. This was a time of punk, and reggae had something in common, because punk was anti-establishment, reggae was anti-establishment. It was the music of the white kids who were in rebellion against the status quo, and it was the music of blacks who were in rebellion against racism and racial injustice. So there was some solidarity between punk and reggae. And I did my first album, Dread Beaten Blood, which this year is the 25th anniversary of the release of my first LP, Dread Beaten Blood. And then I began to do some gigs with some of the punk bands. I played with Johnny Rotten's band, Public Image Limited. I did some shows with Susie and the Banshees, and some of the other punk groups, you know. I used to open for them. Then Chris Blackwell heard about me and signed me to Island Records. It's a great privilege to be a musician and a recording artist and a poet, to have this opportunity to travel all over the world and to meet so many different people and to be in so many different places. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful way to make a living. And I consider myself very lucky. Sometimes, you know, when you're touring, you get tired and you get fed up and you want to go home. But when you go home after 2 weeks, you want to be back on the road again, you know? I've mostly enjoyed what I've been doing these last 25 years. You know, in the beginning, I didn't have a band. We used to record the music, and I used to have a Revox tape machine. That's the days of analog before digital came in, right? 25 years ago. So we would record the backing tracks and have them on the Revox tape machine, and I would simply recite the poetry over the backing tapes. And I had 3 or 4 guys on stage. We used to dance, do some skanking on the stage while I was doing the poetry. In those days, there was always 1 or 2 persons who came backstage afterwards and said, the gig was fantastic, but where was the band? And then by the 90s, I saw other people was doing the same thing. But they called it playback. Music is not a substitute for politics, but music can have some political influence because it is a vehicle to propagate ideas and to express sentiments about things that which people feel is important. You can use music to help to raise people's consciousness about a particular issue. You can use music to mobilize people for a demonstration or for political action. But it's not a substitute for political activism in itself. But from time to time I meet people who say to me, hey man, when I was a student I used to listen to your stuff. I still do, and your stuff was very important for me, you know. It gave me a focus on life, it gave me a perspective, and so on. I feel very honored and very privileged to work with the Dennis Bovell Dub Band. They're a great set of musicians. And I love a lot of reggae bands, you know. I love Culture, I love Burning Spear, I love the music of Luciano. Third World are a great band, but I don't think there's any band around like the Dennis Bovell Dub Band. You know, they're a great bunch of guys. It's a privilege to work with a guitarist like John Kapai. You know, he's one of the most respected guitarists in the reggae business. You know, Steve Gregory, the saxophone player, who used to play with the Rolling Stones and Van Morrison and George Michael and all these people. He's a fantastic musician. Beautiful tone on the saxophone. He's a great soloist, you know. Dennis is a great all-round musician, great bass player. And it's also helpful that he's a good sound engineer too, because Dennis began as a sound system operator, studio engineer, as well as musician, you know. And the sound that we have now it has so much contrast, so much variety, you know. I think we're pretty unique, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm going to do a poem I wrote for my nephew, Bernard, who died under mysterious circumstances in a alleged train accident, because it was never properly investigated, so we don't know what really happened. And he was born in England, and when he died, his parents buried him in Jamaica, because as a kid, he went there on holidays and always wanted to go and live there. So that was his final resting place. Reggae for Bernard. We never come from the same bloodline, but we part, crisscross, and join. And although with one another, we wasn't that familiar, all the same, we was family. That's why I beg pardon and take this liberty and put down a couple rhyme to your memory. It come in like just the other day you left school and joined the railway, with enough ambition and a future plan. You wasn't drawing big pay, but you was well on your way. And just when you're ready to start, figure cho bogey, train cut your journey short. The day you get your last send-off from your barn ground, before them fly your body down to jam down. The sun stay away from work that day, and the slate grey January day, I sing a silent dirge. As dark clouds dart in a different direction, collide and converge, merge and re-emerge, in a bluster of emotion, in a the church grey sky. And the rain it a fall in a squall, like tear-tip arrows piercing the heart of the moan of them. The Baptist church it full up to the brim, overflow upon the step to the street. Long time no see family and friend meet and greet, talking about your hasty retreat. Inside mournful voices a sing, them familiar, bittersweet hymn, and it is well with your soul. Rude boys broke down in tears, mini-skirted girls weep and wail. There's a posse of black and white workers from British Rail, your colleague them from your short working years. And there was testimony after testimony from your age mate them, punctuated by spontaneous applause, about how you did tall and slim and good looking, with your long chin and your captivating grin, about your kindness, about your caring, about your thoughtfulness, about how big and how broad in love you was. Up to now, we still not get no proper explanation. No witness at the station, no police investigation as to how you come for end up on the wrong side of the truck. How your face get fit on from front to back. And who you did a talk to upon your mobile. Them just call it accident and close your file. Jam down was your true dream island. Not this how you did a plan to make your final destination. Now your dream come true and you touch down. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, in a St. Elizabeth style. The unfinished revolution. Now watch ya, Mr. Man. Me not like the way you tan, and your tans are too long, you know, man. I meditate upon the same song so long. Well, hear me, man. Me not preach, me not teach. Me just assure you how me see it. Because the truth, well sweet, just like an African beat, like when you see where you're coming from. Like when you sight which part you reach. So me not care if you want vex or even go on like you perplex. Me go show you when me see Mr. Man. You just sit down and fold up like a cabbage. Like say you got no understanding, got no knowledge. Like say you still no realize, say just the other day, chuck off the choking chains of bondage. That in spite of the hatred and disadvantage, though we slip up and stumble upon the way, we still reach far down Freedom Street, still mindful of the minefields upon the way. So me I beg you, Mr. Man, please come out of your shell. We can't dwell in the past that lasts forever, you know, my brother. Now that the sun has shine bright, please come out of the doldrums of the dark night. History bigger than me or you know. Time can't steal, but it can heal. So shake the dew from out your head. Wipe the cobweb from your face. We got enough work to do, for we not reach Mount Zion yet. Yes, we put down a solid foundation for true. And one and two we well, I get true for true. But we still not build the new Jerusalem yet. The time gonna come again, you can bet. When we are gonna march on again, you hear me, friend? Mobilize with woman and with friend them again. Even the picnic them are gonna join in again. For freedom is not no ideology. Freedom is a human necessity. It can't depend upon no one somebody. It's up to each and every one away. Me not preach, me not teach. Me just assure you how me see it. Because the truth, well sweet, just like an African beat, like when you see where you're coming from. Like when you sight which part you reach. So me not care if you want vex or even go on like you perplex. Me just assure you when me say, Mr. Man. We're marching out the wall towards the new century.
armed with the new technology. We're getting more and more productivity. Some say things looking up for prosperity. But if everyone gon' get a share this time, old mentality must get left behind. We want the shorter working day, give with the shorter working week. Longer holiday, we need decent pay. More time for leisure, more time for pleasure, more time for edification, more time for recreation, more time for contemplate, more time for ruminate, more time for relate, more time. We need more time, give we more time.